we're going to do is we're going to start with our original tail case, and what we're going to do is we're going to press the pin out of the center. Pretty simple to do using either a drift or a small punch. Worst comes to worst, you can always come in and kind of whack it with a drill bit and press it out, or a small Phillips screwdriver. Doesn't require much force. So what you're going to end up doing is you're going to have tail case without its 4mm pin, and you'll have your pitchfork. So what we'll do is we're going to start, actually before I get into the process here, let's show these other parts real quick and where we harvested from. The collar I'm going to use on this is from Dubro. It's just one of their DUB 137s is their part number. It's just a 16th inch brass wheel collar. And what we end up doing is we take our 2mm drill bit, aka 5/64, run it through the middle of the wheel collar to open it up so it will accept a 2mm pin. The bearings we're going to use in this case are from the hobby shop as well, and these are some from E-Flight, and you can see the part number there, but as I mentioned, it's a 2x5 by 2.5mm bearing. And there's one of the bearings, just for show and tell. Now the next parts we're going to need in this, you can actually harvest from the kit. So if you purchased 2 for $300, you can get your 2mm pin from a couple places on the kit. Number one, it's that pin that's used to hold the upper and lower elevator linkage. Or if you look right staring you in the face anytime you look at your rotor head, it's the swash driving pins. So you can take it from either place off of that other kit that you've bought, because you did buy the second kit, right? The other thing we're going to need to do is, if we look in here, we have a 4mm hole, and we're going to put a 2mm pin in it. So we need to get some sort of a spacer. Well, oddly enough, you look around, look at your swash plate, you'll notice that there is a spacer right here. Well, it just happens to be 4mm OD, 2mm ID. Simple as that. So part-wise, what we're going to end up with is a couple of spacers, a couple of bearings, a 2mm pin that we are going to cut down to 22.5mm. So you can see the one that's been cut down. And then we're going to use a wheel collar. So we're going to use this to assemble our little bearing mod on this. First thing we'll do with the tail case is we're going to cut a groove here to hold the collar. And the idea with the collar is once we slide all these parts together, we don't want this thing to come apart mid-flight on us. So the collar is just there to retain the pin. On this, I simply marked the center, started with the Dremel, made my groove, then I came back in with a small flat file and just opened this up until the collar just barely slipped inside there. Then I came back in with the 2mm bit loaded in and basically kind of dremeled this out. You might be able to do this with your roto zip if you have a nice sharp one. Mine was a little bit dull, but I use this bit just to round this out so the collar sits in there nice and clean. So that's the first part, is to set that up. Your collar, as we mentioned, is 16th inch ID, which 16th of an inch ends up about what, 1.4, 1.5 millimeters. It's a little too tight, so we're going to run the 2mm bit, aka 5/64 through there, open it up, wiggle it around a little bit so we can run our 2mm pin through it. So once we've done that, we will see that just slides right on there. We're good to go. So, and also the other thing is, as I've mentioned prior to, we've cut this pin down originally about 30mm. We've cut it down to 22.5mm. This allows us to do first of starting to fit our parts together. So I'm going to use the tip of this rat tail file here. And normally, I'm doing this for the video, but on my final assembly, I will be putting a small drop of thick CA, slipping that in place. I'll do the same thing. I'll load this other one on the file. Small drop of thick CA on that collar, slip it in place. Simple as that. So those will adapt our 4 down to 2mm. Next, not really next in the assembly, but you can, just go ahead and set your wheel collar in there. So Try to get this so you can see through here with our camera, but yeah, you can see those line up pretty nicely, just drop right on through. Next part takes a little bit more skill set from the old hobbies. Our pitchfork originally is 4mm, and we need to open it up to 5 to hold these bearings. So what I did is I took a 3/16 inch drill bit, which 3/16 of an inch is about 4.7mm, so a little too small. If you want to try shoving those bearings in there, you'd probably split that plastic. What I did on this is, the idea that I came up with is we want these bearings to stay seated in this plastic. Well, I don't want to drill all the way through. I just don't want to take my drill bit and go zinging on through this and waller the whole thing out to 5mm. If I do that, my bearings might fall out. Or I'm going to have to require my bearings to be glued in place or some sort of a keeper system. So what I did on this is I used, oddly enough, the undersized bit, drilled through, but when I drilled through, you can see this drill bit won't go all the way through. I actually set it up so it comes into about right there. That's as far as I drilled it. Then I load up my nice sharp 2mm drill bit into my drill. And you'll notice I've kind of made this a depth setting tool here. Get this back in the camera view. If you'll notice, I'm only going through about half the other side. So I actually just use this and work this around and around and around and around until I took 4.7mm and opened it up to a little over 5. Flip the part over, do the same thing this side. Now, with that opened up, we can take our 5mm bearings. Again, on the final fit on this, I will put a small drop of thick CA on the outside of that and just press that dude in just like so. I'll come around to the other side, slip that bearing in. Again, I'll add a small drop of thick CA to hold that in place. Now at this point, we can take our assembly, slide this back into relative position. We take our pin, it's a little bit easier to do without having the camera in your face, so you can actually put the part up. Let's turn this thing over. One side of the pin's got a rough edge on it. There we go. That slides right on through. You can see even at 22.5mm, it's still just a little bit long, protrudes out either end. At this point, we can come in, lock our collar down, check it for snugness, top to bottom. Things feel pretty good. So now we literally have a ball bearing supported tail pitch, which is going to put a lot less stress on our servo, make it a lot happier, and we got something that should pretty much last the life of the tail case until you try tilling some dirt. So one final note, what I will do on this as well is I will take my wicking Loctite again, and I will come in with an X-Acto, put a very small drop, and I will apply it to the top side there. Same thing over here. I'll also come back in with a little bit of thick CA and add some CA there and there on the inside of that collar just to lock the whole assembly together. So that concludes the ball bearing support for the pitch lever in the back.